Hey coaches, welcome back to Football Talk with Coach Chip. This is a very special episode. It is part one of a series of special episodes. They'll have their own playlist here on the channel. We are tickled to have Coach Clint Humphrey, who was just recently on Football Talk with Coach Chip, the podcast, with us. And we got to talking about Army's unique run game and how they're different from your traditional triple option teams and a lot of zone and all that. And we're going to get into that. I'm going to let Coach Humphrey go. And you'll hear me every now and then saying, that's good, or I love it. And it's pretty much just Coach Humphrey teaching us here at Football Talk with Coach Chip about Army's unique zone scheme that so many people, when they watch it, think, that's flex bone, and they line it up in flex bone a lot. But it ain't the same blocking schemes they're using at Navy and Air Force. I can tell you that. It's not the same blocking schemes they're using at Hardin out there in Arkansas. Recently, a year ago, won that national title in D2 running that nasty flex bone they run. When I say nasty, I mean nasty in a good way. Hey, let's be sure before we get rolling, big shout out to Brian Hale and all the folks over at HaleYeahDigital.com. They're the ones that do our theme music here at Football Talk with Coach Chip. If you like it, give them a holler at HaleYeahDigital.com. You can email them at HaleYeahDigital@gmail.com. They do all kind of digital designs, a lot of music like you hear. It doesn't come with any copyright restrictions. It's open source, whatever you call that stuff, and it's good. Brian's a school teacher and a ball coach, and this is his really ultra cool side hustle. Don't forget, the Gunpowder Spread System Manual is out. Hit me up at seagle.chip@gmail.com to get your copy. The OL Manual has just been released on Amazon.com. If you have not bought the ebook, head over there and check it out. If you've already bought the ebook, I don't expect you to buy this one. Hit me up, email me, and I will send you, there's a handful of videos. I made some new videos and linked them into the book that is on Amazon with the QR codes. And I don't want you to miss out. They're unlisted. They're on the YouTube channel, but they're unlisted. You can't watch them unless you have the link. And I'll gladly send that to you. If you've already bought the offensive line manual through ebook form that came to you as an attachment through email, hit me up and I will send you the links to the new unlisted videos. They're not the normal videos with me doing all that, hey coaches and all that stuff. It's just instructional stuff because again, they're not for public consumption. They're for the people that have bought the book either through Amazon or through me via email. And I don't want you guys to miss out on it. And if you have not bought the ebook and you trying to make up your mind, I'm getting a lot of email from coaches. You're trying to make up your mind, should I buy through you? Should I buy through Amazon? It's up to you. If you want a book in your hand, and by the way, there's a lot of the pages, I have really big margins and space, blank space. That's on purpose so you can write in it. It's a workbook. I want you to mark that joker up and highlight it and make notes and you write notes in it and all that good stuff. And that's why I did that. So if you're that kind of guy and you like that, having that book in your hand, buy the book, screenshot where you ordered it through Amazon, email it to me and say, Coach, I'd also like the ebook. And I'll send you the ebook so you'll have both and you can fall back on it. And that's something like and by the way, the ebook, all the diagrams are in color. In the book, they're not in color because it just cost too much. It was cost prohibitive to do it in color. I checked it out and it was just going to be too much. And I wanted to charge the same for the paper book as I did for the ebook and be fair to all concerned. So send that to me and you say, well, why do we want that? Well, if there's something really cool in the book that you want to share with your coaches or your players. If you've got the ebook, you can easily just click on, because the ebook is a Google slide, which is Google's version of PowerPoint. Click on present and you can bring it up on the board and show your kids or show your coaches. And it's in color, so it's a little bit more viewer friendly. So you'll have the paperback book for your study, and then you'll have the ebook to present to coaches and your team. So I think that's a pretty good deal. And it's all just for the $30. And well, technically, if you buy the the book from Amazon, you're paying a penny less because it's $29.99. And the shipping is like $3 and something. So head on over there, check that out. Remember, we got the Jet and the Buck manual. I just sold a Buck manual this morning. It tickled me. And then I've sold several of the entire systems when people want to get all 4 books. It's $150 for all 4. If you buy them separately, one at a time, it'd come to $210. It's the only things we charge for here at Football Talk with Coach Chip. And don't forget all of our free resources. I'll try to put those up at the end like I normally do when Coach Humphrey gets through. But this is just part 1, so there'll be plenty more coming, and I won't do all this presentation and all this commercial stuff, pay the bill stuff on the other ones, because it's like it's going to be a standalone playlist so you can keep going back to it and look at it. So here we go. A deep dive into Army's run game, Army's zone run game. He does not get into the triple option portion. I think when they do run triple, it's pretty traditional the way other teams are doing it. But where they really make their hay is with this fullback dive, it's a zone, and with the quarterback follow, which is an outside zone. So here we go with Coach Clint Humphrey. Take it away, boys.
All right. So, Coach, you got my screen?
I do. Zone series, skull and crossbones. Yes, sir.
That's it. I mentioned in the podcast a little bit. I'm kind of between schools right now. I've taken a job, and I had the opportunity to make the trip to West Point last off season, and man, having the opportunity to watch them practice and look at some of the concepts and philosophies they use, not just their triple, but kind of everything else. It changed a lot of the ways that we did things, a lot of the ways we practiced last year at Excel. We incorporated a lot of this stuff into our single wing package. And we really thought we were going to make the jump to flexbone last year, kind of kick the can down the road, so to speak, a little bit longer. And we're going to end up, I'm going to end up making the jump moving forward. But I'm going to show you a lot of clips of under center flexbone zone series stuff. And I'm going to show you some gun stuff at the end. And it'll kind of give you some insight as to how we applied this stuff to single wing. So I'm going to use a lot of Army cuts because that's who I'm talking about. And that's kind of how we got linked up. There's zone dive clips I'm going to show. I actually stole a clip from some TV copies because a couple years ago, they were a little bit better at it. So it's a little bit more, it's a little bit better example as to what they're trying to accomplish. But so some of the stuff that we're going to talk, I'm going to use a lot of our terminology, not theirs. But guys, it's really the same. It's really just semantics. So this is our take on what they call the zone series after talking with them about it. There are a few tweaks we've made in terms of how we combo things that are a little different that fit our kids at a middle level Alabama high school a little bit better than what they do. They're very smart people, very intelligent people on that football team, and because of that, their system can get a little dense at times. And so we simplified things down, to a high school perspective. So. But this is the bare bones of what they do. So although the terminology will be just a little bit different, they do refer to them as their Z schemes and their zone dive and like the clip you showed, Coach, what amounts to an outside quarterback lead play. They call it. Well, they used to call it Stanford Cardinal and Stanford Cardinal Wall, and then Clemson and Tigers, and they had Georgia Bulldogs. Several different ways of calling it. But, now they call it a little bit different. We call them zone dive and zone follow. And that, to us, that simplifies it down. And it puts it in kind of a wing tee series type mentality. A lot of people, and there's a lot of coaches that run this. A lot of people don't run it as an outside zone scheme. Harding runs this play, and it's a little bit more veerish with the third man in the surface, doing what they call pinning number one to the tackle. But the way we block it is almost a true outside zone with a few key differences in terms of how we use technique and footwork to gain leverage advantages on certain players. So we actually also include the rocket toss, what we call the zone toss. It's the same play. We call it the zone toss just to put it in our kids' minds. Hey, it's the third phase of this series. So it's really the perimeter aspect to this series when they want to get into the D gap to the sideline. That's kind of how they get into that. So we view this as a way to still manipulate the defense, and we're going to get into how we do that and get to the 3 phases, but without risking the football quite as much. And so this is really the first thing that Army wants to do, and it'll be the first thing we want to do. We want to try to overwhelm our opponent at the point of attack with double teams and numbers and leverage and angles. And if we can do that, then we can probably put ourselves in a position to win the game, at least a position to be successful without having to put the ball in harm's way. And not that, as an option coach, the triple really amounts to what spread teams throwing and catching, we're pulling and pitching. And so, if we can overwhelm our opponent and get out of there without risking that football, we definitely want to do that.
Well, like you said in the podcast, and it's fresh on my mind because I just listened to it on my run this morning because it went up. But you said on your mind it was a great point, and I should have used that as the cold open instead of. But that other one was great. That you didn't want to be labeled a loser. Yeah, I'd love that. But the another great take you had was that you believed, and I believe along with you, I believe you're true, you're right, is that it's easier to find a quarterback that can run the football, like the kid at Army.
Bryson Daly,
yeah. It's easier to find him than to find a Peyton Manning type kid.
For sure. And all the skills that go along with Peyton Manning. Not only do you have to teach footwork and throwing the football, you got to teach O-linemen nuanced skills in terms of protecting. You got to teach receivers how to run routes and catch the football. And it's a big undertaking and endeavor to be really good at the throw game. And there are lots of programs out there, Coach, that can do it. And but there's more programs out there that can. And I see a lot of those.
And they're trying.
That's right. And I see a lot of these programs that are trying. They're just not very good at it. And so you'll never convince me that it's not easier to find a way to outgap folks and to find a way to find a kid that can be tough and physical and run the football. I think a lot of people have a Bryson Daly. He's probably playing middle linebacker, probably playing fullback, so tight end maybe. I don't know.
Dude, I went at Rogers Clinic last week, the Southeast Wing T Clinic over in Dublin. There's a group that comes up from North Florida every year, and we've gotten to be friends, and we talk during the course of the year now. Union County High School, they're a really good 1A, 2A power in North Florida. And their quarterback this past year, and by the way, they got beat in the semis by the eventual state champion, Madison County, which is just south of Valdosta, but it's in Florida. They're very good. And their quarterback was the starting middle linebacker.
Yeah. Ours is up Carton Will. Like our quarterback is like throwing touchdowns in 7-on-7, then he's got to carry a wheel route on defense.
Out of the backfield. Yeah. But now let me ask you this before we get moving and keep going. Is this something you think? Let's say you got a team that's kind of a spread team, okay, and they run inside zone and outside zone already. Mm-hmm. Can this be a change-up offense, or is it something they have to marry? Because, the true triple, you have to marry it. Is this something you think they could do if they already got – now, obviously, if they're a gap scheme team, maybe not. But if they're already a zone team, can they get in this as a change-up offense?
100%. I think you can. You don't have to run this. We ran this out of single wing. You don't have to run this out of flex bone. The option element creates problems with how they're going to fit it from the secondary and get that extra hat. But the amount of times they ran this out of the shotgun, direct snap to Daly, I think this is definitely applicable to any team that runs inside zone and runs outside zone. And we're actually not going to talk any inside zone today because we're not going to talk any triple stuff. We're just going to talk zone series, really just 2 plays because I think we'll probably be up against the time by then. We're going to talk zone dive and zone follow. And zone dive, a lot of times when you watch them run it, Coach, it really looks like wedge. That's kind of –
It does.
It does. And a lot of times they refer to it as getting up in the wedge and all that kind of stuff because versus certain fronts, the play is going to get kind of pinched, and you're going to see that big fullback kind of get up in the crease and just kind of add on to the pile and kind of move it. And in a lot of ways, the physics that make zone dive work are the same physics that make like the tush push or the Philly special, not Philly special, like what is it? What do they call it? Brotherly shove.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like using that kind of everywhere to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
no,
we're ready to go.
Yeah, and coaches, watch when we get to the clips. Watch the pad level of Army's O-line. I'm telling you, man, it made me tingle inside, Coach. But all right, go ahead.
So let's see if I can get it to. Well, I'm having some trouble. There we go. So really, what the goal of the play is to muddy the water. Slow linebacker fits give big backs a chance to hammer the box. Slow feet and big backs equal yardage. If you can make those linebackers unsure of where they can fit this thing to get the momentum stopped, it creates situations where, a 250 for Army, maybe a 220-pound back for you, slams up into that box and kind of moves the pile. If your feet are not moving downhill, if you're not taking read steps and you're not working really hard to block the feet and block destruct at the point of attack, you're gonna have a hard time stopping this play, at least the dive aspect of it. It's a crease the box mentality, and really all they're trying to do is stay on schedule to create 4 down opportunities. And that the analytics behind that are really very impressive to hear them talk about it.
All right, Coach, explain to a good chunk of them, of our viewers are following along with you. Great. But a good chunk of them, they sell insurance or they're a lawyer and they're coaching the rec league or youth league team. So when, explain your 3 bullets, slow feet, crease the box. I know what you mean by crease, but explain to them and about staying on schedule and all that. Explain that to the viewers.
So it's really an old school mentality, right? So if you can be efficient in every down, you're going to stay on schedule and create 4th and shorts, which is really what you're going for. So the mindset is kind of an old school efficiency mindset of if we can get 4 yards on first, we're on schedule. That creates 2nd and 6, all right? And then if we can split the distance, we create 3rd and 3. And then if we can split the distance, we create 4th and 1-ish, 2-ish, depending on, where you get tackled. And then obviously the ability to convert. And this stems from we don't ever want to go backwards. A fullback for Army, Jacoby Buchanan, he had I don't remember how many carries he had, but it was 350 carries. He never went backwards. Because what this play does is what it creates a situation where you decrease maybe your chance of popping an explosive play, but you increase your chance of being efficient and staying on schedule so much so that it's so valuable on first down and in short yardage. And if you ever get into a situation where that fullback creases the box because of these blocks, and it'll be much easier to explain in a minute when we kind of get into the X's and O's portion of it, why these linebackers fit it so slow. You create a situation where this thing goes for 5 yards or 6 yards or 7 yards instead of 4 yards. Now you're looking at 2nd and 3, and your chances of stopping them from converting are virtually none. And so,
because they're going forward, they're going forward.
Yeah, they're going forward, whether it's 1 yard or 2. They're not going backwards. That just doesn't happen a whole lot.
In my lifetime, not my coaching career, in my lifetime, I can remember hearing this stat one time. And I was 10 years old. The 72 Dolphins who went undefeated, not counting passes, remember, that's different, but on run plays, did not lose a single yard in those 17 wins.
I believe it.
Larry Zonka, Jim Kick, Mercury Morris.
I'm a Dolphins fan, Coach. That's actually that's a cool one.
I never forgot hearing that stat when I was 10 years old. It just stuck with me, and ever since then, I still remember that. And as a coach, that was always my goal. On rundowns, we should never lose a yard.
Don't go backwards. And going to Army and seeing them run this system really changed our single wing mentality. We used to pull guards a ton, and we really got to where we didn't. We started scooping the backside, and we're going to talk about that extensively here in just a minute. And the mentality, we really took on that mentality of if we pull a guard, the chances of us missing a back block or the chances of us creating a crease that the defense can run through goes up. And that's an old Alex Gibbs NFL zone mentality. And we started scooping the backside and down in the front side and creating some different power looks. And we found that our efficiency went through the roof. We never went backwards because there was no gap to fit it in, and it creates a difficult read for a linebacker. I've heard Nick Saban talk about with RPOs that he prefers running RPOs off of gap versus off of zone because it gives the linebackers a clear read, a pull, down block, where those linebackers are influenced so much more versus a zone block where it could potentially look a little bit like play action. It could potentially look a little bit like like a slide pass protection, where it kind of, creates a cleaner read so you get more flow. And so we wanted to eliminate that from the backside, and that's really what Army's trying to do too. So, but the biggest thing, we talked about the scooping. The biggest thing is 2 points down from this, where the front side changes, but the backside doesn't, which creates overlap in reps. So every rep you get running zone dive, running zone follow, running zone toss, you're getting reps on the backside of the other two plays. So it creates a world where you get really, really, really good at scooping, and you may end up being able to scoop techniques that you never imagined you'd be able to scoop. You never imagined a backside tackle would be able to scoop a two technique on a guard. But because you rep it so much and it's the world you live in, you end up getting really, really good at it. And so it creates a world where kids can play fast and play confident. And it creates a world where you can kind of get it down in the briar patch and your kids can get comfortable with playing a kind of a productive, not pretty form of football, which is really what we're going for. And then the biggest thing, and like I said, we're not going to talk about triple, but the big plays are not necessarily going to come off of these. It's not really going to come off a dive, follow, and toss. It's really going to come off of your triples. Army created a lot of explosives this year with GT counter. And these are really constraint plays designed to take advantage of what the defense is having to do to take these overwhelming concentration of force type plays.
I love it. I love it.
So the first thing we're going to get into is we're going to talk about the backside of the play. All right. And the backside of the play is very simple, and to a lot of old school option coaches, this is going to be redundant, but for a lot of our viewers, they probably aren't familiar with this stuff. So we're going to look at scoops. And so the play direction on this slide is always going right. So whether we're running dive or follow or anything like that, the play is going to the right. So we're going to talk about the assignments of each one. So from the center back, the way we communicate this is three different types of scoops. We have full, we have halves, and we have wide scoops. And plays can dictate this, fronts can dictate this a little bit. But what the biggest thing our center has to understand is he has half of the play side A gap. And what we mean by half of the play side A gap is when we scoop, we're always responsible for our play side gap to the backside linebacker. So we're always scooping to this guy. Well, if I can get it to draw, there we go. We're always scooping to this backside linebacker. Well, when we get into a half scoop scheme, or this half of play side A, the center is still responsible for scooping to the backside linebacker. But if we get front side linebacker pop, like we're showing right here, or we get some sort of nose like leaking over into the A gap, then the center's got to take that guy. So that's the half of the A gap that he's responsible for. But he's never going to push over to a two technique or a 2-eye even.
That's my question. So if it's a 2-eye, he's not scooping him. But if it's a 1 shaded to the play side, then he would scoop him.
He ends up, and look, we're going to get into some of our calls, like how we call a combo on a scoop. And we may take as a game plan situation, we may say, hey, if they get into a 2-eye right here, we are going to scoop him. We feel like he's enough of an A-gap presence that we can kind of get our hat across him. But it's hard to knock a 2-eye over to a center from a guard perspective. It's not hard to knock a shade over him. So we want to try to live in that world. So our backside guards are full scooping, but it depends on the alignment of the defender that we get. And understand something, this X back here on the backside is a flex receiver. He's responsible for scooping that backside C-gap, just like a tackle would be, just like a tight end would be. And you're going to see a lot of clips. You're going to get to see a lot of really good scoop clips here in just a second.
I noticed, too, that they almost turn totally parallel to the line, like they're running down the line of scrimmage, don't they?
At times they are. They really want to play as vertical as you can. So the thing that you kind of have to preach is you want to, as far as the footwork goes, you want to get, 45, 60, 90. You want to really get those shoulders square as you cross back into the line of scrimmage. So you may lose a little bit of ground to be able to gain leverage on a defender. You want to stay as vertical as possible. Mm-hmm. So everything you do, if you can do it with your shoulders square, square is strong. I hear that phrase used a lot in football today, and it's true. So when we're looking at this one on the left right here, this is like us versus like an odd front, right? So if we get a head-up nose, we'll call this guy, we'll call this guy 0, all right? He's a 0. And so what our center has the mentality of is he wants to get his ear to this guy's hip.
There you go.
And he wants to deliver him to this guard that's full scooping, because we're not worried about backside B-gap pop, because we've got this guy full scooping too, right? Now, if this end bleeds over, that tells us that this linebacker is not responsible for backside B-gap. Somebody else has to be, and we want to get heavy, and we want to lean back on that defensive end. Folding back into that B gap. So this center wanting to get his ear on the nose guard's hip and deliver him to the backside guard, he's going to take a right-left footwork path, and it's a little harder. And now, granted, you want him to take a path that sets himself up for success. It's a little harder to do it versus a nose, whereas here, on this other one, we're half scooping a 3 technique and delivering him to the backside tackle. We already have leverage on that defender versus a nose guard where that leverage isn't quite as strong because he's head up.
Love it.
And does that make sense, Coach?
Yes.
So it changes our footwork just a little bit, and we want to be thick through that half of that defender to that linebacker. Now, again, on this front one, or really on either, if we get play side linebacker pop, that center's got to throw his hat in there. And he's got to take that pop. But he really wants to get square, and he wants to stay in the fight, and he wants to fit this linebacker who's trying to get over the top of those scoop blocks to desperately get his hat back into the play. Mm-hmm. Here we have a little bit more on the right side. We're a little bit more concerned with an A-gap pop. And so this guard wants to be as thick through that 3 technique as he can be with his eyes on this linebacker. Now, Coach, we're not going to take – in this scenario, that guard's not going to end up on that 3 technique. Like the guard's mentality is to knock him over for that tackle to overtake. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And it would be the same thing with a 2 technique, but I just felt like that was the easiest. So this is a good example of kind of a full scoop and a half scoop. Again, full scoop. And I know I had it written. I don't want to just read off these slides, but a full scoop is, hey, I had no defender in my gap. I have a defender in my gap. I have a defender from my crotch to the crotch next to me, to the play side to me. And I'm half scooping if I have no defender in my gap. So if I add a guard right here, theoretically, this is the look we're getting, right? So now we've got a full scoop from the center, and we're going half scoop with him, vertical, to this same backside backer, potentially fitting over the top. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And listen, I have a tendency to ramble. Stop me. If Coach, I could talk this for 6 hours. It wouldn't make a difference.
I love it. Coach, I'm going to keep saying I love it because I love it.
Now, when we run zone follow, the mentality of the center is a little different. He wants to have a wide, because the play is going wide because it's an outside zone play. He's not just regular scooping. He's wide scooping to this front side A-gap backer. Okay? If this backer runs, which is probably what's going to happen, he goes there, we want to get square, and we're still fitting to that backside linebacker, just like you would on a gap scheme if that guy runs over the top and you don't get him. if worst case scenario, we're going to keep this path and we're going to try to get our hat on a safety that's coming out of the roof or whoever that extra hat could potentially be. We don't want plays where we've got guys standing up or running free. We want plays where guys are on the ground. Now, we're not trying to throw or we're not trying to cut a second level or third level defender, obviously. And we will throw a little bit on first level defenders, especially Army on the backside. They'll get into those legs. They talk about on a backside, going back to this slide, one of the things they teach this backside guard that's a really good coaching point is when this center gets vertical and when he's right-left on this nose right here, the backside guard is trying to stick his head in the crease, which is the air between the nose and the center. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's his aiming point. You're trying to get your hat in that crease.
That's a good coaching point right there, Coach Humphrey. And that's a good place to stop. Part 1 of our deep dive into Army's zone run game with Coach Clint Humphrey. Coaches, don't forget, opportunity to support Football Talk with Coach Chip at buymeacoffee.com/Coach Chip, buymeacoffee.com/Coach Chip. And you can join the conversation with tons of other coaches on Facebook at Football Talk with Coach Chip, the Facebook group. Really been some great conversations going on over there. Check it out. You can find me on Twitter at Chip Seagle. I'm Coach Chip at Chip Seagle on Twitter /X. Check all that out. And it keeps the channel and the podcast free when you interact and you go to buy me a coffee and all that good stuff. And check all that out. Go over to the podcast. You can find it on Spotify, Apple, and of course all the other podcatchers as well. Also, we got all of our freebies. Be sure you like the video and subscribe to the video, and that if you got to subscribe to get the freebies. So subscribe to the channel and be sure to share it with your buddies, all your coaching friends. Just got an email the other day, well really this morning, where he said the entire staff is subscribed and it's just something they all do, and it's a small school, and he talked about how the normal everyday language that I use and explain the concepts where they can relate those to their kids, and I just thought that was freaking awesome because that was my aim. And it's always good to know when you shoot an arrow into the sky, did it land where you wanted it to land? I'm not shooting, being a marksman here. I'm just doing what I think coaches will like. So it's kind of like just dropping the mortars in and lobbing them. And it's good to know when you hit the target. And I love getting emails from you guys. Hit me up and I'll return every email. That is a promise. I mean it. Don't forget, I will visit with you. I just went up the road about an hour yesterday and visited with the staff for about 3-4 hours, ate lunch with them, hung out with them, talked some ball with them, and we're setting up some times and a schedule where I can go and visit with them. It's a new staff. The AD and I have known each other, and he said, Coach, can you come up here? He said the head coach is amiable to the prospect of you coming in. They got a inexperienced offensive line coach. He's played a lot of football and coached some football, and mostly zone scheme is what I gather, and they're going to be running a lot of gap scheme with their smallish offensive line. And I said, I will. Over 40 years of experience is an email away, guys. All you got to do is hit me up. I do Google Meets. I was talking with a coach from up north, and I was telling him about going and visiting with these guys. I said, I wish I could visit with you, but you're a little too far away, but we can hook up on Google Meet, do consults, installs, whatever you need. Hit me up at seagle.chip at gmail.com. Okay, that's it for this episode of Football Talk with Coach Chip, a special visit, guest speaker, if you will. I'm going to start doing more of this and get better at it. I know the sound quality is not great. I think some of it's because I'm closer to my mic, and I have an actual mic that I bought for the YouTube channel. And I think a lot of that, I'll get better at it in mixing and editing and all that kind of stuff. But you can hear what he's saying, and you can see what he's saying in his very well done presentation. Go on over and check out. I'm about to start working on part 2. If you're seeing this right away, part 2 may not be ready. And the video clips will begin in part 2. All right. Head on over there and check out part 2 of the deep dive into Army's run game. And until next time, y'all, be elite.